Well, it's a great pleasure to be back in sunny South Carolina. I come from cold Canada, so it's lovely to be here. Boy, it's balmy. And it's good to return to historic St. John's Church. I want to thank your rector, Callie, for her kind invitation to come back. And I want to thank Mark and Betty Tullis for hosting Ginny and me on our visit here. Thank you. It's a good time to escape Toronto. Taylor Swift and legions of Swifties have taken over our city, and you can't get a ticket anywhere. She's the biggest act in the world. Like, she's an international superstar. She's the reigning queen of pop music entertainment, which just goes to show that monarchy comes in many forms. Monarchy comes in many forms. You may find this quaint, but I come from a country founded on constitutional monarchy. King Charles III is the official monarch of Canada. His image reigns on our currency. We even sing, "God Save the King." In our courts, we have crown attorneys. Oaths of loyalty are made to the crown. Most of the country is comprised of crown land, and so on. Who would ever have thought that in the 21st century they are still crowning kings and queens? You folks disposed of yours about 250 years ago, as I remember. Yet King Charles III bears scant resemblance to his famous forebears. King Charles I, you remember, was an absolute monarch who ruled by divine right, and someone who stubbornly refused to redefine his role, and as a result, he lost his head to Cromwell and the parliamentarians. History teaches that earthly monarchs must change, must adapt with the times, must redefine their roles or perish. Today, royal figures like King Charles and Queen Camilla are really just ceremonial figures. The tinsel on the tree of state. They are costumed, remote, irrelevant, and at times even comic. Though the lifestyles of the royally rich and famous may still fascinate, the royals don't really impinge on our lives at all. They make no demands of us. We get along just fine without them and with them. We accord them a certain respect, but grumble when they voice their opinions about modern architecture or heirloom vegetables. In Canada today, the monarchy is a symbol of the state. King Charles III embodies the state. And the state symbolized something much larger, much greater than our current crop of bickering politicians. I say all this because if we are to mark this final Sunday of the church calendar, this Sunday of the reign of Christ's kingship, well, we must first cast from our minds all our preconceptions about monarchy. Monarchy comes in many forms. Kings and queens in sumptuous palaces, entertaining ambassadors and heads of state. The lowly, humble Jesus knows nothing about. And constitutional monarchy is not what Pilate and Jesus are discussing in the judgment hall in Jerusalem. And constitutional monarchy is not what the church claims for her Lord. And when Christians say that Christ is king, we mean he's the absolute monarch of heaven and earth. The Alpha, the Omega, the absolute monarch. He's not a costume king who cuts a ribbon at the opening of a hospital or a highway. He's the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, an absolute monarch who does not change with the times, who does not redefine his role. See, today's gospel is really a clash of empires, a clash of kingdoms, the ultimate showdown between two diametrically opposed forms of authority, of kingship, for both Pilate and Jesus claim to reign. They claim to rule. So we're in the judgment hall, the place of Pilate's power. Pilate has just been woken up by a mob of people he detests. They're shouting, "We have no king but Caesar. This Galilean is a rebel. He's a threat to Caesar's rule." And Pilate, amused, "Are you king of the Jews? You're a threat to my authority?" In one sense, Jesus is guilty. He's the ultimate threat. But then Jesus turns the tables on Pilate and says, "Do you say this of yourself, or have others told you?" And with contempt, Pilate says, "Am I a Jew? Your own people, your own leaders, your own chief priests have handed you over. What have you done?" What has he done? He's done some healing here and some teaching. He's gone around talking about the coming of God's kingdom. He's taught some of his followers to pray, "Thy kingdom come." His whole ministry has been this provocative witness to another kind of kingdom, another kind of rule. So two sorts of authority are at play here. The iron rule of Caesar's state authority and the seemingly powerless authority of this prisoner. "My kingdom is not of this world. My kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight." So Jesus admits to being a king, but of a rather odd sort. He has no throne, no palace, no army. His kingdom is not confined to one place, nor does it rely on the threat of violence. His reign is utterly unlike that of King Herod or Caesar or Putin. Yet his influence is infinitely greater. Pilate's confused. Raw power is the only kind of authority he understands. Are you then a real king? A real king? Then the cryptic reply. To this end was I born, and for this I came into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. Are we listening? Truth has an authority we simply have to accept. 2 and 2 equals 4. That's just the way it is. The Dodgers won the World Series, whether we like it or not. The truth just is. Likewise, the authority of Jesus simply stands. It simply stands. It can't be legislated, coerced. It does not compel us to obey. And yet, once we have glimpsed this truth of this humble king, this lowly monarch, this king who came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life for us all. Once we have glimpsed this truth, we want to be his subjects. We want to follow him. We want to obey him. We want to be near him. We want to be like him. We want to be like him. God's truth is beautiful. God's truth is beautiful. It entices, it attracts, it disarms. For it is the absolute truth of unconditional love. And this truth, of course, is most clearly displayed on the cross. God's truth. Love to the loveless, shown that we might lovely be. God so loved the world and all its ugly brokenness that God gave us a way out, a way forward, a king to follow. So the kingship of Jesus is unique. It's absolutely unique. It is not shown in the issuing of royal edicts or moralizing commands, but in those enigmatic words and puzzling parables that he left us that oblige us to imagine ourselves in a different light, maybe as a dependent child, maybe as a prodigal teenager, maybe as someone who just happens to stumble over hidden treasure, someone who is jealous of the gifts and advantages given to her, a righteous Pharisee, a dodgy tax collector, a blind beggar, a good Samaritan. Christ's kingship, writes Rowan Williams, is the kingship of a riddler. The kingship of a riddler, I like that. The one who makes us strangers to what we think we know. This riddler unveils the truth for us, God's truth. And there's no aspect of our lives which really remains unchallenged by this truth, this topsy-turvy truth, this upending truth is the key to the kingdom, and this truth transforms lives in the most startling ways, as we see and when we look at the saints among us. and how this truth has transformed lives. Christ our King has created us, has called us, has chosen us, has claimed us as his subjects. And again today, our King invites us to the table to share in his royal dignity at his banquet in a kingdom not of this world, that's not endorsed by this world or anchored in this world. So what's your verdict? What's your verdict? Is he a king? Is he a real king? If he truly is our king, how shall we, his subjects, structure our lives, reimagine our world? How shall we seek first his kingdom, extend his reign? And even as we pray for our daily bread, let us always continue to pray, thy kingdom come.